Mincemeat. Not sure whether that title is immediately a draw card, though, Peter. What do you reckon?
I know, but they gave it that title because that's exactly what the operation was called.
Absolutely, but it's fascinating. I suppose anything in this world, in this digital age where you've got a moment to capture attention. Whether if somebody told you without knowing anything about a movie, do you want to go and see Operation Mincemeat? No, I think I'll go for the sirloin steak. Thank you very much indeed. All right, let me tell you a little bit more about it. It's 2 hours and 7 minutes in duration, and it is rated M. Now, arguably one of the most audacious Allied operations during the Second World War is brought to life in what is a tense thriller, and it's based on reality. The contention is subterfuge, which reaches the highest echelons of the British establishment. The Nazis are expecting an invasion in Sicily. Here we go again. What's the theme here? And have prepared for it. In an attempt to turn the tide of the war, the Brits orchestrate a plan intended to fool them. That involves an elaborate amount of detail, including a dead body washed up on a beach and a love story for the deceased. Now, leading the subterfuge is our Commander Ewan Montague, played by Colin Firth, and he's aided by Charles, and I'm going to try and pronounce his name, Cholmondeley, played by Matthew McFadyen. Both are highly accomplished. The latter takes a fancy to a woman in the military's employment, Jean Leslie, Kelly MacDonald, who proves to be extremely resourceful. Indeed, it's her photograph which is used as the dead man's love interest, one that will be placed in his dressed-up cadaver's trouser pocket. Beyond that, Montague and Cholmondeley, their backstories play a part in what unfolds. Montague is married to a Jewish woman, Iris Hattie Morahan, who flees to America as she and her husband recognise she'd be targeted if the Germans invade England. Montague subsequently forms a tight bond with Jean Leslie, sparking jealousy on Cholmondeley's part. He lives with his mother, Hilda, Ellie Haddington, who's desperate to retrieve the body of her other son, who happens to be Cholmondeley's brother, who was killed in battle. Pressures applied to both Montague, because his brother Ivor, played by Mark Gatiss, is suspected of being a traitor, and Cholmondeley, so pressures applied to both Montague and Cholmondeley as a love triangle develops in the midst of a particularly dangerous and fraught operation. So this is Operation Mincemeat. I thought it was a compelling, complex, and quite brilliantly executed piece of work. And that starts with a layered screenplay by Michelle Ashford, who makes her feature film writing debut. She's really noted for her television writing prior to this. And it's from a book by Ben McIntyre. The film benefits from, I thought, outstanding performances from the key players, fine direction from John Madden, who did The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, and noteworthy production values. The attention to detail is laudable, Peter.
It certainly is. A few days ago I had a long chat to John Madden about making this film and how he was using material, and his screenwriter was using material that had become declassified in the 1990s, because up until then it was all pretty much censored and unavailable, especially the deception about invading Greece rather than the actual target of Sicily. And what is so interesting is this is not exactly a remake, but the same story was used in 1956 in the film The Man Who Never Was, Ronald Neam's film that starred Clifton Webb. And at that time, a lot of it was supposition, and they didn't have the classified material that they had. So one thing that John told me was that they were able to use so much more information and material to be more accurate about the actual subterfuge that was happening in this invasion that eventually was in Sicily. Look, this is a very well written, very impressive film in many respects. It has strong performances, and as some people have said, but this is a very dialogue-driven film. And I say, well, so what? So is Shakespeare. I mean, it's I don't think that's a criticism at all. So I really enjoyed this film, telling a story in World War II that is not that well known, and now the film is able to reveal so much about this dead body and how it was used to try and win World War II.
Let's talk about the relationships and also the characterizations. I mean, Firth and McFadyen, there's this real charged relationship between the pair of them.
There is, absolutely. And that's what one of the clever bits of writing in this film. And also the Kelly MacDonald character, which to some extent is manufactured, but nevertheless is a very clever counterpoint to the two lead actors. And I really enjoyed the other supporting roles, including Simon Russell Beale as Winston Churchill.
It's always, whenever you see them, you wonder, this is Winston, we know who you are straight away. I mean, I thought Penelope Wilton had diplomacy down pat, and she plays Montague's reliable offsider, Hester Leggett. I thought she was very good. And I also thought that we talked about Firth and McFadyen. Respect for positions of authority that their characters occupy often spills into antipathy, and I think that's what made this so strong.
And don't forget Johnny Flynn, who played Ian Fleming in a sort of semi-accurate sort of representation.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, we talked about Kelly MacDonald. She shines as this woman torn by duty and her growing personal feelings. And you sort of think you can relate to those sorts of characters that we're talking about. Now, I don't think the other two of you have seen Operation Mincemeat, have you? Jacqui, have you seen it?
Yes.
Oh, you have? I'm sorry. I apologise. Dave?
Yeah, I've seen it too.
Oh, okay. No, because the interesting thing, I got your notes this morning and it wasn't mentioned, so I just didn't know. So, okay, let's go with you, Dave, then. What are your thoughts about Operation Mincemeat?
Look, I absolutely loved it. I love espionage movies, and I just love the fact that they've made this movie and they've made it true to form. It would have been so easy for them to have made this movie so that it was almost like a James Bond kind of film. I had the privilege a few years ago of actually interviewing someone who had previously worked for ASIO, and he said the first question people always ask him is, what is the lifestyle of a spy like? And he said majority of his work was done in dingy offices. If he got to go overseas, it was normally meeting somebody in a cafe. It's not jumping out of planes and shooting at people like people think. So I thought this film captured it absolutely amazingly well. I only had one criticism for this entire film, and that was the scene, without giving too much away for people that haven't seen it. There's a scene where it looks like their plan is being unraveled because somebody reveals something, and I thought the director and the screenwriter cut away from that scene just when the audience wanted to see what was going to happen next. And I really, really wanted to see that scene expanded to see how a character that we've come to know and love through the film handled a situation where their life was in danger. That was the only criticism I had for this entire film. The rest of it I thought was brilliant. I loved the meetings inside the nightclub where they were fleshing out this plan. I loved how as an audience you got to see the entire plan come together. Sensational acting. I thought that the acting was absolutely amazing in this film, but just that one criticism with that one scene was the only criticism I had.
Tension is the constant mainstay in Operation Mincemeat. It's kept alive by the twin threads. You've got the dynamics in play globally, and then you've got the protagonists' personal lives. I mean, these are flawed characters, Jacqui. They're playing a high-stakes game. Tens of thousands of lives are at risk.
Yes, and myself being a person who's a bit over the war genre, I thoroughly enjoyed this because what it is entertaining. There is the intrigue, there are the characters, there is this growing plot, the deception, the love triangle. It's actually quite complex. Probably my only criticism would be perhaps too many characters. I did struggle a bit with, who was who at some point, but the characters were all interesting because they had different relationships with different people, and it brought out different sides of their character too, as this developed in that sort of atmosphere of tension. It was very polished. Colin Firth is just born to this kind of role. So he was terrific, and the plot being completely outrageous, truth stranger than fiction, was just fascinating because, well, I didn't know where it was going to go in terms of how each of the characters, how it was going to develop, and so we went along for the ride, and I thought it was thoroughly entertaining, and I loved the humour in it. There was quite a bit of humour, and that added another level of enjoyment.
Dave referenced the actors, and I just think you believe that they are who they play, and that's the art form of acting at its finest. So, the script is complex. There's no doubt about that. You've got to concentrate. You can't sort of switch off. But having said that, they bring it all together perfectly well. With all of its twists, it certainly held me, Operation Mincemeat, tightly throughout. And the fact that there's truth at the heart of it makes it all the more significant. One thing I wondered, and I don't know whether any of you can comment upon this, is obviously when you're making a movie, you've got to create dramatic impact. So in terms of that relationship, the love triangle, etc., how true any of that was. Dave, do you have any insight into that?
No, I don't. Of course, you're always going to want to try and put some more stuff in there to try and bring it to the screen. But I thought that's, like I said before, that was one of the things I actually enjoyed about this film, was the fact that they didn't go over the top. It didn't feel like the kind of film where they've put a chase down an alley or something in there just because they needed tension at that moment. So I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that perhaps that was there, that there was a love triangle kind of thing going on, because it doesn't feel like the kind of film where either the screenwriter or the director's gone, hey, we need to spice this up a little bit. It does feel like a true capture of what happened during that period.
What did you think, Peter?
Yeah, well, John made it very clear to me that there were elements of dramatisation that they used in the film, so that love triangle, that sort of thing, that was sort of inserted into the film to give it a bit more of an entertaining punch, even though they obviously still kept the main story, which was absolutely true. Look, I don't have a problem with that.
No, I don't have a problem with it, but that's an integral part of the storyline, and obviously the tension between the two main players. Did you get the impression, again, when you spoke to him, that there was tension between some of the people at the top of an operation such as this, or, again, did he not really comment upon that?
Oh, no, he did say that certainly there were very tense elements, especially about this whole issue of victory during World War II and the... Oh, yeah.
But I'm not talking about the victory during... And I can appreciate the tension at the time. I'm more talking about the charged relationship that we referenced earlier between the characters played by Firth and McFadyen. Whether when you're forging a path, you've got two guys, if you like, at the top who are not necessarily seeing eye to eye on everything, and what that would mean to an operation. In other words, that could jeopardise the whole operation, whether there was any element of that or whether they were all rowing in the same direction, or you didn't actually talk to the director about that.
Well, let me just say that a lot of that was part of the drama rather than necessarily the actuality of the situation.
Yeah, I think that's the way I took it. All right, let's get to the marks. Let's start with Jacqui Hammerton. Operation Mincemeat is the movie we've been talking about. 127 minutes, M-rated. Jacqueline.
Excellent entertainment. I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
I concur, Jacqui. Peter Krausz.
I'm so surprised. 3 films in a row that I've given 8 out of 10 to.
Oh, jeez, you're so predictable. Right, thank you. And
I knew you were going to say that.
Thank you. Dave Griffiths?
Yeah, I'm giving it 8 out of 10 as well. This is my kind of spy movie.
I can't recall that we've given the identical score, 4 of us, to a movie before. Maybe I'm wrong. We've usually differed by at least half a mark. So there you go. Folks, please go along and see Operation Mincemeat in spite of its name, or because of its name, whichever way you want to go.